got it. Next week is going to be lesson 4. Dickie's going to teach. I know. Backing up. Dickie's going to teach next week. He's going to teach lesson 4. And then I realized we only got one more week. So the last lesson we'll cover 2 weeks from tonight is, I think, 15. So in 2 weeks, which will be the, what's 6 plus 14, the 20th. The 20th will be lesson 15, changing your corner of the world. And that'll be it. Because the following week will be, so next week's lesson 4. No, I skipped it. And then lesson 15, and then the gospel meeting, and then that'll be it. At least for my time. All right, so tonight, it's lesson 14. No? What about now? All right, lesson 14, which I said what we were going to do before, and that's not what we're doing. So now I know what it's going to look like the next 2 weeks, and that's it. Lesson 4 next week, then lesson 15. Okay, so tonight we're going to go back to 1 Kings, if you want to be turning there. 1 Kings 19, and we're going to continue talking about who? We're going to talk about Elijah some more. So when we talked about him before, he had gained a pretty great victory. Well, I'll just say Satan. He had performed some miracles with the help of the Lord. The Lord had proven that he was with him and had reassured him and had conversed with him. And then everything was great, right, in Elijah's life, because he had had this great victory and he was doing really well. He had seen miracles performed. But where do we find him in 1 Kings 19? Who immediately comes after him because of this victory? All right, Satan does, but the queen comes after him and tells him what? You're going to be dead when? Within 24 hours. By this time tomorrow, if I have served my gods, this is Jezebel speaking, you'll be dead. Where would that put you? Saturday afternoon, somebody comes up to you and says, if I see you at church tomorrow, I'm going to do what? I'm going to kill you. What would you?
You would agree with what I said.
You're probably right. Well, I don't know, Dickie, what would you say then?
I would probably have something that would take care of it.
Well, you take care of yourself. Where would you be, though?
I won't be there.
All right. That's the real question. Are you going to do what you're commanded to do, or are you going to let somebody scare you from doing it? What did Elijah do? Now, I'm not saying he wasn't doing what God told him to do. But somebody scared the daylights out of him. Sir?
I would, my family was so strange that Elijah didn't go to God and ask him what to do.
No, he didn't. And that's a very good point. We're going to talk about that. What overcame him immediately? Fear What was he trying to protect? Whose life? His own. Where'd he go? All right. 1 Kings 19.
I thought it interesting that the writer used this as jumping off for burnout.
It did.
I have not used that term to describe this situation, but it certainly does. He's the person who's
Right.
burnout.
Sometimes right after our highest highs come our lowest lows. And I think you see that borne out several times in Scripture, and this is just one of them. Okay?
Acts 18, Acts 18, many of the Christians here believed were baptized, Acts 18.
You look at anything that started happening in dispersion. Right.
He's from a high to a low.
Right. 1 Kings 19, somebody read verse 3 for me.
And he was afraid and arose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there.
Did he stop running when he dropped his servant off in Judah? All right. He traveled yet another day. In verse 4. But he himself went another day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. As you pointed out, he did pray, but he didn't pray for what to do. What did he pray for? Death. If he wanted to die, where should he have stayed? Right where he was at. Do you think Jezebel would have kept her word? I absolutely think she would have. I would say she wouldn't have belabored the point. What do y'all think about that?
He doesn't actually want to die, he just wants the bad things.
All right, he doesn't want to die. He wants the bad things to stop or the threats on his life to stop.
He wants the Lord to take it. He don't want him to die the way Jezebel.
All right, he doesn't want to die the way that Jezebel was going to take him. But what had he just done in chapter 18? If he wanted an answer from the Lord, what did he do? All right, he killed prophets. When he prayed for dew to be on the ground or dew to be on the fleece, what did the Lord do? He answered his prayer, and how did he answer it? Positively, in the way that Elijah asked it to be answered. The Lord did exactly what he asked him to do. But in this case, he didn't do what? The Lord didn't do what? He didn't take his life. He didn't do what Elijah asked him to do. Why not? He had work for him to do. Why else do you think he didn't take his life?
Serve no spiritual purpose.
All right, doesn't serve a spiritual purpose. Wasn't God's will. What else you got? Why didn't the Lord do what he asked him to do when he had done so multiple times in the previous chapter? All right, he had other work for him to do rather than doing what? Killing himself or running?
I mean, I felt desperate at times too,
Mhm.
that I wish this was over. And I'm thankful the Lord spared me, that he didn't in my life when I wished. And we can see that through the Bible. Sometimes our desperation, the Lord sees the end always. So sometimes we ask for things that the Lord answers us. He's just saying no.
think that's exactly what you see here in Elijah's life. Again, you've got your fire triangle. I would say he was not only running away from Jezebel, he was running away from probably multiple things, but he was just running, maybe because he didn't know what else to do. So he just ran.
Sense he was running from God and running from his own responsibility. Sense that he needed to do.
I absolutely think he was running from his responsibility, because what did God send him to do? Yeah. And when he sends him back, and ultimately when the rest of history transpires, where does Jezebel end up? Where does Ahab end up? Where does Elijah end up? He didn't see what? He didn't see death. So the very thing he's praying for here, the Lord never fulfills. Because his life on earth didn't end in death. He was taken by God. But at this point in his life, he's either exhausted, run out of options in his own mind. And when he does, he turns to the Lord in a way that, quite honestly, I think the Lord rejected. Don't come to me with that. So when you look down at the bottom of that first page on 68, it says, down but not out. In 1 Kings 18, we talked about that, but then we talked about how he had overcome with God's help, that he relied on God, he needed reassurance from God. God reassured him once, God reassured him twice, God had reassured him multiple times. And regardless of all the assurance that he had, that God was with him and that he could overcome, where do we find him in chapter 19? So look at those 4 bullet points there. He was afraid. He doubted his ability to continue. He was exhausted, and he felt frustrated and alone. The frustration and alone is where I think he isolated himself from God in his mind. Because what was his claim twice in this chapter? I alone what?